the KMPDU now. Okay. So KMPDU could be partly part of it now because part of you are in county government, part of you are in national government. So for those who are in national government and they would really wish to make their savings with us, then we will accept them and we will bring them on board. But those who are basically bona fide employees of the county government, you are right at home. This is the LAPFUND is purposely there to serve the employees of the county government. So my colleague Flavian Kubasu will take us through a presentation basically on who we are, what we do, and how we handle issues on pension for our members. So it will take us through a short presentation, and then after that we'll be open now to Q&A. But as you've advised, as people raise their questions through the chat box, then we'll be picking them up, and at due time we'll be able to respond. So should we continue, Daktari, with our presentation?
Thank you, Elwood.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone.
Yes, you can. Thank you. Continue.
Good evening again. My name is Flavian Kubasu. As you've been told, I'm the coordinator in charge of alternate markets. First of all, let me take this opportunity also to thank the Union, because this is not the first time we are engaging. You've been part of our stakeholders, and I know we've really been pursuing to ensure that all doctors, whether employed or in private practice, can start savings for their pension. You know, as Emmanuel said, hello?
Yeah.
You can hear me?
Yes, Kubasu, you are lost a little bit.
Yeah, someone tried to call me. It's okay. Let me proceed with the presentation. So yeah. You can scroll up, Daktari. So who is LAPFUND? And actually, why are we talking about pension? When you look at that graph there, or the figure, the slide there, you know, when you are age 0, you are growing. And then we get into our careers at 21, others at 30 years. And then, you know, it's just a curve. Life is just like a product life cycle. You develop, you grow, and then you start going down because the energy levels start reducing because you've already worked. And the bad thing about all this is all of us who are working, we spend a lot of time working and we forget about paying ourselves. Actually, in summary, this graph shows you that when you start working, when you earn your money, start paying yourself first before you start paying other people. Paying yourself first, the only way you can do that is by saving in a retirement scheme. Because if you stay with that money in your pocket or in your bank account, you will end up paying other people. So you pay yourself first, you secure your future. Because the day you will not have an income, you need to have what is called income replacement. And that's why retirement comes in. I don't want to go into the details of that particular slide, because sometimes you look at the expenses when you're really getting old at 50, at 60, you start operating in a deficit, you start experiencing medical issues, and yet you don't have something to fall back to. So that's why the retirement schemes are there. Next slide, please. Daktari, next slide, please. Good. So what are the benefits of joining a retirement scheme? Number one, from the employer's perspective, it's a legal requirement for an employer through the Employment Act 207, Section 10 and 19, and the RBA Act. And then we have the County Governments Act of 2012, Section 132. The employer, when he allows his employees to join a retirement scheme, he projects a caring image, because you are caring about that employee, not just for the work he's doing for your company or organization, but also you're caring about that employee in future when he will not be able to work. Next. From the employee side, now us, with the doctors and many other Kenyans who are getting some income, either through direct employment or business, from your own perspective or from your own side, it is a viable tool to save through retirement. Let me do a demonstration. Assuming you join a scheme at the age of 30 years and your salary is 27,800, and then you pay approximately 7,500 shillings to the scheme every month for 30 years. The total savings for 30 years minus interest will be about 2.7 million. This is just a conservative figure, but I know there are people who are saving more than this. In essence, when you look at global rates, people are saving up to 50% of their income for the future. So they only use 50%. In Kenya, and let me say, for example, in LAPFUND, we encourage our members who majorly are from county governments, they save up to 27%, whereby we have 15% contribution from the employer, which is mandatory if you are employed, permanent and pensionable, and 12% from the employee. So if the employee is not saving 12%, automatically you lose out on the 15% from the employer. So you can ask yourself a question. When you are employed on permanent and pensionable basis, and you have not joined a retirement scheme, the employer is obliged to pay for you 15% according to the law and according to the LAPFUND Act. So you are supposed, you know, all the years you've worked, you've lost 15% employer contribution. So for the employee contribution also, you have paid other people. So in essence, you have not saved anything for your retirement. Looking at it differently, when you look at other countries, people save so much when they are working and they're still strong, so that by the time they retire or the energy levels go down, that's the time now they look at those retirement savings plus the accrued benefits and see how they can balance their life when they're not working. And that one gives you to a point whereby you see people who tour the world most are people from the West, the developed countries. Couples in Mombasa, in the beaches at old age, because they saved. They saved during the active working age. Because I can assure you, my brothers, honorable doctors, by the time you are 60, you will have no child in your house who will be depending on you. You will remain yourself with your wife. So the more you save, the better, because that's the only money that will enable you to meet your daily obligations. So from that slide, I'll just urge people all of us here to consider making that saving, because it's very important. Saving money in the bank, it's not easy. Saving money in the properties, it's one way of saving, it's one way of investing. But I can assure you, sometimes the volatility in the markets, sometimes it troubles a lot of people, and you can end up losing all your savings because of just maybe a small spark in the political environment or a downward economic trend. So let us move to the next. On the employee side also, it cushions you against the separation between you and the employer. Number one, when you are employed, you're earning a salary every month. the day you leave that job, you have separated with the employer, and you have not been saving for retirement, you have no other source of income. Another benefit for saving for retirement is about the tax benefits, because up to 20%, up to 20,000 shillings, you get up to 20,000 shillings tax benefit from your salaries. So, for example, when you are employed permanent and pensionable, and you are paying, you are a member of LAPFUND, before they calculate pay as you earn, they will remove up to 20,000 shillings from your salary before they calculate pay as you earn. So your pay as you earn will be lower than that person who does not save for retirement. Another benefit is we as LAPFUND, we value our members and we do regular training sessions, because it's also a requirement by, it's actually a regulatory requirement by the Retirement Benefit Authority to continually train our members, on what is happening in the industry and about individual member accounts and any other questions that may arise. So we do this more regularly. Next, yes. So who is LAPFUND? Who is LAPFUND? LAPFUND, we are a state corporation. We are a parastatal. We're established by an Act of Parliament, Cap 272 Laws of Kenya. And we have, we are a scheme currently operating in the county. Most of our members are from county governments. And of course, we operate also under the County Governments Act of 2012, Section 132. Because during the transition period from local authorities to county governments, the law changed, and to protect the pension for those kind of employees who are working for local authorities and now county governments, to ensure that there's no gap or there's no vacuum. That law was enacted and ensured that there is continuity in the provision of retirement solutions to employees of county governments and those ones who transited into county governments from the defunct local authorities. So LAPFUND is also regulated by the Retirement Benefits Act of 1997 and all the regulations that come up subsequently. Next. So what is our mandate as LAPFUND? Okay, number one, LAPFUND is a defined contribution, a DC retirement benefit scheme. We cater for employees of county governments, water companies, and associated organizations. And recently, because of the low uptake in the industry, I said this slide will have to, I'll enrich it a bit with the changes in the retirement benefits industry and the low uptake of pensions. LAPFUND has expanded the product base. We have introduced other products, not just catering for permanent and pensionable employees only. We are also catering for contract employees who work in counties. Those ones who are on gratuity, we cater for those ones. And then we also cater for those ones who voluntarily contribute to top up their accounts through voluntary contributions. And finally, we have also extended our market to include the informal sector or the alternative markets outside the county government setting, the primary market that LAPFUND was operating in. So we have an individual pension plan whereby individuals can also, those who are doing, your friends who are doing business, who are doing private practice, together with the employees in the clinics and hospitals, can also start saving, because as you saw the earlier slide, I said, caring, if you are a doctor and you have staff within your clinic and hospital, you need to encourage them to save. So that's why we have created this new product called LAPFUND Individual Savings and Retirement Plan. Next, please. I hope I'm not very fast. So being a state corporation, a government, a quasi-government entity, LAPFUND has oversight bodies, and we have stakeholders, people who we engage in our day-to-day operations. Number one, the person who makes LAPFUND to be LAPFUND is a member, the person who contributes the money. So members from all over the country who are members of LAPFUND are one of our key stakeholders, and we hold annual general meetings. We hold annual general meetings that ensure that those members attend to question the operation, of the scheme. Number two, we have county governments and their boards, the county public service boards and the county assembly service boards. Then we have boards of water companies. We have workers' unions, like now you, the officials of Kenya, the Doctors' Union. We have the Retirement Benefits Authority, who are the regulators of the industry. They are one of our oversight bodies. Then we have the Office of the Auditor General. Our books of accounts are audited every year, every end of financial year. Auditors come to our office to audit and ensure that members' funds are safe. So that when we are told, please, if today you close down, are you able to pay off everyone? That's the work of the Auditor General. They ensure that there's prudency in the management of the scheme. Then, of course, our parent ministry, where the ministerial responsibility lies, is the National Treasury. And National Treasury handles funds and the oversight. They ensure that the money that is meant for workers, members, is safe. Then we have the Inspectorate of State Corporations. Those on SCAC, they ensure that the operation of the scheme, day-to-day operation of the scheme, is followed, of course, following the law. We have Performing Contracting Department under the Ministry of Devolution, where LAPFUND, every financial year, we set targets. Targets are set for us in terms of investment portfolios, return on investment to members' funds, and of course, ensuring that we grow the scheme and the fund value. And finally, we have a Sharia supervisory board, because we have a Sharia window that caters for the Sharia compliant. We have a Sharia compliant product called LAPFUND Amal, which has a board called as Sharia Supervisory Board. Let's go on. Next. So why the doctors to join LAPFUND? Number one, doctors, they will not want to go to a place that has no sound legal framework. So LAPFUND is anchored anchored in an Act of Parliament, which means that members' funds or members are protected from arbitrary changes. An institution that has been created through an Act of Parliament, for you to just wake up in the morning and change something is not possible. You have to take it back to Parliament. And in Parliament, before even any law is passed, they normally do what is called stakeholder public participation. Number two, why LAPFUND? Because we are placed on the National Treasury, among other financial institutions, by the executive order of number 2 of 2013, when the government was reorganized. People thought that we will eventually go to devolution, but I think the government saw, because we're handling funds, money for retirement, and the pension policy has never been devolved. It is always at National Treasury. That's why LAPFUND, RBA, they all sit under National Treasury, including the new scheme that came, the Public Servants Superannuation Fund. Then we have a board of trustees representing all stakeholders, appointed by the parent ministry of the National Treasury. Next. So, number one, on customer focus, the reason why we focus more on our customers, we know that we exist to enable our members live long, happy lives by collecting, investing of the contributions, and then at the end of it all, we promptly pay the benefits. Like now, if you ask your area member of county assembly who saves with LAPFUND, most of them right now, they are loaded. We are really paying their voluntary contributions, and at the end of their term, we will pay them gratuity, which they all save with us. We have regular updates to members during AGMs, as I've said earlier. Stakeholder forums, like now, particularly like now, we can have this kind of meetings, either virtual or even physical. And then we give members a status report on individual member accounts by giving them a statement of account showing you where you are. Because being a DC scheme is just like having a bank account. The money that is in your account is supposed to reflect on your statement, including return on investment. We focus on our customers because we also hold member trainings. During your term as a member, we do a lot of seminars. And before you retire, we also conduct what is called pre-retirement trainings. So those pre-retirement trainings, we bring in people with financial expertise to tell you how to invest this money, whether you invest it in another form instead of just, if you are paid, for example, lump sum, instead of enjoying the money, you can buy annuities. Then you can also invest in areas that the financial experts will advise you. Our service commitment is committed. LAPFUND has a customer service charter that is a requirement of performance contracting, where we detail our services, the services we offer to our members, what LAPFUND provides, and also we tell our members what they need to provide. So we have a very active online platform, as shown there. If you logged in there and you're a member, we are able to use your ID number or membership number, log in and access all your details. You can change your next of kin. You can be able to see your statement of account through the online platform. Next. The regional presence or our branch network, LAPFUND is all over the country.
Down there. The white one. Ajaingiza basi. It's Zoo. It's Ephraim.
Okay, well, someone
He
should
is disappeared.
There's a member who should mute the mic. Like our regional presence. Hello, let's continue.
Yes,
Next
we
slide,
can.
please.
Yes, we can.
The next slide, please. Yeah. So I'm continuing with why LAPFUND. Right now, actually, this slide is, I didn't correct the fund value. We just did our audit. Right now, LAPFUND, we are valued at 5.6 billion shillings fund value, and we are supported by around 65,000 members, and we are continuing to grow. Our diverse investments are professionally managed or conducted through professional fund managers and custodians. Our current portfolio is invested in government securities, equities, property, and deposits. We always work so hard to ensure we maximize return on investments and declare competitive returns to our members. LAPFUND is stable and liquid. That's why even currently, right now, despite the hard economic times during COVID, we are in the process of paying out all the members of county assemblies, governors who are retiring, county executive committee members who have been serving with us. And I think by the time we go to the elections, we'll have paid close to about 6 billion shillings to members who are living now. We are audited by the Auditor General, as I said earlier, and then we present these things, the audited accounts at our annual general meetings. Next. Our asset classes, as I said, we invest in government bonds. You can see the percentages. Properties, we are within the requirement by the RBA. We are not supposed to go beyond 30%. So we are at 24% currently. Other assets, of course, we have unquoted equities, deposits, corporate bonds, and government treasury bills. That's why we invest in the majority of the money, because it's very safe. Next. Membership growth. When you look at the growth in membership, there is a bar that is left out of the key for 2020, 2021, and 2021, 2022, which is, of course, will be picked from the audited accounts. We increased our membership by about 100% from 26,000 in the financial year 2014-2015 to 60,000 in the financial year 2019-2020. So this one is different now. We are at 65,000 members. Next. Our fund value. The fund value has increased by, from this slide, in 2014-2015 to 2019-2020, it increased by 88% from 2.3 to 23.1 billion, 45.5 billion. Right now we are at 56 billion shillings. Next. Member contributions. You see, our mandate is to collect. Once we recruit you, we are supposed to come to your employer and make sure that we collect the contributions, invest those contributions, or send them to the fund managers, the professional fund managers, to invest them in well-performing market segments, investment areas where we ensure our members get a return on investment year on year. Next. Like now, this slide will show you an example. Members' benefits, the ones we paid, increased over the years by over 100% because we got more members. Like in 2014-2015, we only paid about 0.9 billion shillings to members. And then in the year 2019-2020, we paid out 3.6 billion. So payment of benefit is a continuous process. You see, like now, this particular year, 2022, because of the exit of members of county assemblies, governors, members of executive, we are targeting to pay about close to about 6 billion shillings by August this year. Next. You've done this? Well, yeah, next. How we manage contributions. Yes, when you look down there, where the arrow starts, the sponsors are your employers. And from the employer, members contribute different contribute to different products. We have normal contribution. Normal contribution is the permanent and pensionable, which is 12% and 15%. 12% of employee, 15% of employer. That gives you about 27%. It's like you're saving 27% of your income. Then voluntary contribution, this is where you decide that through my payslip, I will be saving 10,000 shillings. And then gratuity contribution is where those employees or state officers or doctors who are employed on contract, maybe 3 years or 5 years, according to SRC circular, members who work in counties and are on contract, they qualify for 31% of their basic salary, which I will probably show you later how it's calculated. 31% of your salary, which is gratuity. So we collect this money on a monthly basis. Then the counties send, your employers send it to LAPFUND, and then we transfer. We as LAPFUND, because we don't have the capacity to invest. The only thing that our board has is an investment policy. But also the law states very clearly, the RBA Act, the scheme cannot invest itself. So we give this to our professional service providers. Number one, we have a custodian who holds the funds and assets in custody on behalf of LAPFUND. And then we have fund managers who their day-to-day work is to invest. Like at the moment, we have 2 fund managers, and the board decided to have 2 fund managers at a time to ensure that there is competition between the 2 of them. So a fund manager who invests and brings in good returns is given more money for investment. And the one who does not, his portfolio is reduced because we want members to get higher returns. So we are now with Sanlam and Britam. Then at the end of it all, when you retire, we pay your benefits. The member gets his benefits, the money you have contributed over the years, plus the investment return. And being a DC scheme, LAPFUND, or being a provident fund, we pay lump sum. But that lump sum payment, probably in an earlier, later slide, you'll see, we have other products that can enable you to either take an income drawdown, buy annuities, so that you get those people who don't like getting lump sum amount of money. I don't know what happens. Let's continue. Yes, our products. So statutory contributions for permanent staff, we have the employee contributes 12%, employer 15%. This one is calculated of basic salary plus house allowance. The second product is the additional voluntary contribution, the VC. This product was allowed by RBA to enable members, because before salaries in the sector started being improved, members were earning peanuts, and then when you calculate their contribution alone based on 12 and 15%, they were saving peanuts. So RBA allowed them to do other top-ups, voluntary contributions. So members decide how much to contribute depending on their ability. It's a voluntary thing. You can start with 10,000 today, and then when you get hard up, you can reduce to 5,000. It's very flexible. Then members accumulated benefits, contributions plus accrued interest is paid at the end of their term or contract for service. Contributions can be also through checkoff. The voluntary contribution you can do through checkoff. Our officers can come and fill checkoff forms, take them to payroll for deduction. Because sometimes it's hard for people to kujituma mwenyewe uende utume hiyo pesa kwa LAPFUND. Others do direct bank deposits. Others use M-Pesa. Now it's a global way of paying for your day-to-day needs. And then we have bank standing orders. You can also instruct your bank that every every this day of the month, you can send to LAPFUND this amount of money. Next. So for voluntary contribution and the one for individual IPP, the individual IPP, voluntary contribution, members can use our M-Pesa. We have an M-Pesa payment platform. You just go to M-Pesa pay bill menu. You select Lipa and M-Pesa, select pay bill, enter the number 754488. Your ID number is a unique identifier. So you put your ID number there. Once we receive that money, the system will show us this money comes from Dr. Emmanuel, and then we will update your account. When you go to the portal, you'll be able to see the money on your account. Next. Gratuity management. Gratuity is the product that, as I said earlier, I don't want to belabor so much on it because I've already explained. This is a product that basically serves people who are on contract. If you're serving a contract of 3 years and you're a state officer, know very well that your employer, be it private or I think it applies across board, is supposed to pay you 31% of your basic salary to, it's supposed to pay to you every end of the month. Actually, the practice has been, gratuity has always been paid by employers at the end of your service. But when LAPFUND started managing gratuities, we agreed that instead of the employer postponing that particular payment, why can't they send it to LAPFUND on a month-to-month basis for management? We invest it, we get for you good return on investment, we pay for you it will help you actually pay the taxman, because when it remains with the employer, the gratuity remains with the employer for the 3 years or 5 years, it will be subjected to 30% tax. But when you agreed from day one to bring your gratuity to LAPFUND, it automatically qualifies to be subjected to the tax regime accorded to retirement benefits. So you will save a lot of money. You'll save a lot of money to that extent. Next. So declaration of interest. Well, this, sometimes when you tell our members, the declaration of interest depends largely on the performance of the economy and the sectors where we've invested our money. But the advantage with LAPFUND, that when you're a member, the interest you earn is compounding. Every year you are a member of LAPFUND, there is compounding interest every year. So we have declared interest to our members ranging from 5%, which has been the lowest, to about 60%. And the average we've declared the last like 10 years, 6 years, I'm sorry, is about 10%. Average for 60 years we've been in operation, when you calculate all the interest we've declared, it's about 12.6%. Next. So member benefits. What are these benefits? The retirement benefits. Members are eligible for these benefits when they attain the mandatory retirement age of 60 years or early retirement age of 50 years. When you attain age 50 and you feel like you want to claim your benefits, the law is very clear. You apply and we pay you promptly. You can choose to take your payment in lump sum, all the money in your account plus the interest, or you can decide to take what is called income drawdown. You might elect to receive specific regular amounts or a percentage of a total fund value in your account for a period not less than 10 years. That's how an income drawdown operates. Next. So a member who leaves service of the sponsor through either resignation, dismissal, before you attain the retirement age, you are entitled to your contributions and interest accrued, and plus 50% of employer contribution and interest accrued. The deferred benefits, because you have not attained the age of retirement, or even you cannot take early retirement, it's deferred until you attain that age. Survivor's benefit. On bad luck or accidentally our member dies, he nominates beneficiaries who receive full payment of the member's total benefit, equivalent to the total fund value and the accrued interest of the member contribution, plus employer contribution for the period of membership. So in case something happens to our member, the next of kin, nominated beneficiary, be it a spouse, be they be children, we normally, so long as they're 18 years and above, we pay them all the money that, according to how you nominated. You know, if you nominate your children, you can apportion, allocate percentages. Say, huyu 10%, mama yao 15%, ama baba yao 20%, depending on who. And then we will pay according to the members' wish. Next. Probably on that one, those ones who are still underage, there is a trust fund that LAPFUND established that ensures that those children who are underage, they still continue going to school. So we are able to pay for their school fees and their daily needs. But when they attain the age of 18, we settle the remaining money to individual account. So invalidity benefit is a member who is certified to be permanently incapable of working because of physical or mental disability. When this one happens, before you attain your retirement age, you are entitled to payment of all your accumulated benefits in full. Immigration benefit. In case there is a member who decides to go to outside the country and he has been serving with us and he wants to claim the money, all those benefits plus return on investments will be calculated and paid in full to the member who is relocated. Next. Then there is a pension-backed mortgage. Pension-backed mortgage, this one is where members can use the accumulated benefits up to 60% as collateral to secure a mortgage loan to own homes, which are at the same time they are saving for retirement. At the end of, the same time, saving for retirement, for secured retirement. No funds are transferred from a member account or from the scheme, since the trustee can only issue a guarantee to the lender as security. Number 7, we have group life assurance cover. This is an insured benefit designed to protect our members and their families. It comprises of death benefit in case our member dies. We have also a funeral grant called last expense benefit, total permanent total disability benefit in case our member is declared totally disabled, maybe due to an accident. And then we have critical illness. These ones members don't contribute to it. It's a product that LAPFUND offers to the families of the members and their families in case any of this occurs. Next. Well, those are just pictorials on our engagement with the stakeholders. And by the way, as the slides on pictorials move on, the product called pension-backed mortgage we are putting up affordable housing units in Kisumu. In Kisumu, we are building to about 2,000 units. So all our members will have an opportunity. The groundbreaking will be sometimes this month. Very affordable units, about 5 million shillings, and you have a 3-bedroom house. So if you're a member, you're able to invest. Kisumu is an upcoming city, and it's important for me to point this one out. You can get in touch with us even before joining in, and you're interested. Probably that will help us to interact more. So how do you join? How do you join LAPFUND? You join LAPFUND by filling in a membership admission form. Then you attach a copy of your ID. Of course, in that form, you'll have nominated your beneficiaries and allocated all the benefits. Then where a member decides to make voluntary contributions, the member fills the voluntary contribution form, LAPF9, which of course is addressed to the payroll people, and it points out how much money you want to contribute every month. Then the signed admission form is forwarded to us for admission. After admission, we will issue you the membership card and a membership number that we'll be able to use anytime you visit our offices. Next. Yeah, claiming your benefits. We've walked the journey on how to join, why LAPFUND. Now we have reached whereby this is the end now. You have worked, you have retired, you want to claim your money. So at the end of your service, as a member, you fill in a form. It's called Notice of Closure and application for refund. Attach all the relevant documents, copy of your ID, copy of your ATM card, copy of KRA PIN, copy of letter supporting the reason for closure. Of course, if you are retiring, it will be a letter for retirement. If you are maybe you're leaving due to maybe other reasons, either you've been interdicted, will be that letter. Relocating, you have letters showing that you are relocating and you have separated from the employer. Actually, that's a letter showing separation between you and the employer. So once we receive these forms, the signed form and attachments, once they get to LAPFUND, we process your payments according to a service charter within 5 working days. Within 5 working days, we process your payment. You don't need to come to our office to pick a check. LAPFUND, we do the electronic money transfer, so long as we have all your documents and your account details. That's why we have a copy of your ATM to ensure that the account you fill in the form and the one on the ATM, they are correct. You'll just get the money in your account. Next. Thank you. I think I've seen questions have been coming into the box. So I'm sure Eliud has been picking them. So I will return it back to Emmanuel Mola. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Flavian. I would want to take this chance to just lead us through the question and answer session. And I will start by a question I actually asked myself. What's the difference between a DC and a DB scheme?
Now, a DC scheme, that's the defined contribution scheme. This is a scheme whereby the money you contribute and the one your employer contributes towards your retirement is in your account, okay? And that's the money that you will be paid together with the return on investment. But a DB scheme, a defined benefit scheme, and actually most defined benefit schemes were done away with in the year 2012 by the Minister for National Treasury, that time Minister of Finance through a circular number 8 of 2012, whereby, not 2012, 2010, there's a circular in 2010, circular number 8 of 2010, said that all defined benefit schemes to close down until they paid their last members and register defined contribution schemes. The reason was a defined benefit scheme, whatever you contribute will not count to what you will earn at the end of it, at the end of the day. They use a formula. The percentage, the average salary you earn the last 3 years of working plus a pension factor. This pension factor is determined by the actuaries of the scheme to ensure that the scheme does not lose. So they will put a pension factor that will disadvantage the member. And that's why when you look globally, most defined benefit schemes are operating under deficits. They operate under deficits. And that one became a big problem because, that's one of the schemes that even the government was operating for civil servants, and a law has even been enacted. And you can see now whatever we have, the Superannuation Fund at National Treasury today for civil servants is a contributory, it's a DC scheme. It's not a DP. So members used to be, that's why there was a lot of cry amongst our folks that have retired, have been following my pension, because the schemes operate under deficit. They promise, so you'll find those people who are working now, their money is used to pay those people who retired. By the time you retire, and maybe the economy is not performing well, the money to pay you is not there. I hope I've answered your question. Probably, Eliud, you can.
Yes, I think you have. So I want to give a chance to a member who's raised their hand to just ask a question.
Yes.
Dr. Mohammed. Dr. Mohammed, kindly go ahead and unmute.
Evening.
Good evening, Doc.
Good evening. Sorry, I joined a bit late and my network has not been very good. So generally I'll just speak out and I'll come back. So our question is, I'll take you back a bit because I joined in a bit late. It's about the old system. Unlike now, this annulation you're talking about, does it, how does, I mean, what
You're
happens
breaking.
with the...
Dr.
I can't hear you very well.
Dr. Your network is so bad. Is it possible that maybe you can type?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, as we await Dr. to type, I think we can go ahead and just look at the chart. Elizabeth Kemunto had 3 concerns. The first is, can you have a retirement deductions from different retirement funds done from one payslip? I think she means probably, is it possible you have a deduction from LAPFUND, maybe another from LAP Trust? Then 2, do you receive employer contributions of 15% and the 12% deductions from county? Rumor has it that if they were not remitting NHIF deductions, loan deductions and SACCO deductions, then highly unlikely the 15% and 12%. Then her third concern is, does this apply to devolved staff? We were usually thrown here and there, like now at NMS, we have retirement deductions taking place. Not sure what happens when we get back to county. By devolved staff, she means staff who are previously employed by the national. Yes, exactly. So yeah. Over to you, Flavian.
Okay, let me respond, Dr. Yeah? This is Eliud.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, on question number 1, can you have a retirement deduction from different retirement scheme done from the same payslip? And the answer is no. If you are already contributing to LAPFUND, for example, you cannot contribute to another scheme unless you choose to change your pension scheme. When you now change your pension scheme and say you want to move from, let's say, CPF to LAPFUND, then they stop deductions to LAPFUND, and then they start doing deduction to CPF, and they do a deduction to LAPFUND. The main reason for this is because employer only pays 15% once. It cannot pay 15% twice for 2 different schemes. So I hope that answer is answered. Number 2, do you receive employer's contribution of 15% and the 12% deduction from the county? The answer is yes. The employer normally deducts 12% from your payslip, but 15% is not deducted from your salary. It is a payment that is purely done from the employer's coffers. So the employer does a budget, provides for 15% for all their employees, and then, but when they are now remitting the money, they remit the 2 monies together, the 15% on one column and the 12% on the other column, so that it makes a total of 27% contributory. On the issue of NHIF deductions loan, really, they don't do that if you are not paying your loans or you are not paying your deductions, but it can only happen if you've committed to your payslip to an extent that you are at the very bare minimum, which we normally call it a third rule. So if your salary does not allow any further deductions because you remain with a third of your basic salary, then deduction cannot happen. Because under the Employment Act, it is a requirement that employees should not commit their salary to more than a third. You should always remain with a third of your basic salary. So I think that is where the matter is. If you've committed yourselves with loans and or SACCO deductions, and to the extent that 12% cannot be deducted, then it automatically means you cannot receive the 15%. 15% is actually a requirement that you first do your 12% and then the employer does 15%. The day you will stop doing 12%, the employer will also stop doing 15%. Number 3, does this apply to devolved staff? We are usually thrown here and there, like now NMS. Yeah, devolved staff, actually, those people who came from national government, there was some problem initially, but there was a directive from the Public Service Commission that employees at that time of devolution who were 45 years and below were allowed to become now employees of county government, and county government was supposed to be paying for them 15%. Those who were more than 45 years of age at that time, then they had advised that those ones can remain under the national government retirement scheme, which is a DB scheme. But I think what happened with the county government, they didn't bring this information to the employees who were devolved from national government, so that it ended up having majority of the employees devolved were neither contributing to this scheme, nor they were members of the national government pension scheme. But until 2011, when the government introduced what we call superannuation scheme, then all employees who were devolved and they were not contributing to either LAPFUND or CPF were automatically deducted to contribute to what? Superannuation scheme, public servant superannuation scheme. But for those who had already started contributing to LAPFUND or CPF, then they continue contributing to LAPFUND and CPF. They were not moved to public servant superannuation scheme.
Thank you, Eliud. Just a follow-up. I have some few more direct questions that were direct. And it's actually one of them is on the last point you've made. Kindly comment on the public servant superannuation scheme. It's about the last point you've made. Kindly comment about the public servant superannuation scheme. Someone would like to know more about the public servant superannuation scheme.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Dr. Public servant superannuation scheme. Let me start it back a little bit. Before 2007, we were all in what we call a DB scheme. there was no DC scheme in this country. And if there were very few private companies who were doing DP scheme. But government was on a DP scheme. That is why when you get those people who were employed in the 80s, in the 70s, and even in the 60s, they were employed and their letter was saying you are on permanent and pensionable terms. And when you're on permanent and pensionable terms, that means you don't make any contribution towards your retirement, but you work for the employer, and the day you will retire, then the employer will calculate your pension based on your salary and what we call a pension factor and the number of years that you've worked for an employer, and then they determine what is your pensionable amount that you're supposed to be receiving every month. That became a challenge because that's what we call deficits. Because as you get employed at the younger age with a low salary, but by the time you are retiring, you are earning a higher salary. That means your pension will be higher than the salary you started with when you were employed. And it became very difficult because in a DP scheme, the assumption is those who are working finance pensions for the people who are retiring. So it became a challenge, and globally it became a challenge. And in 2007, the government changed the law and introduced what we call a DP scheme. So most private companies actually converted their DP schemes into a DC scheme. The national government now, they've not been able to convert a DP scheme into a DC scheme because of very basic reasons. When you are converting a DP scheme to a DC scheme, at that point, you assume people are retiring. You are supposed to calculate their pension amount as if people were retiring, and then transfer that amount, transfer that actual money into a DC scheme. And then now you start deducting money from the employees so that they build up on the existing money that has been transferred from one scheme to another. But for government, I think the pensions for the national government has not been funded for a very long time. So that when you retire, at that point, the government calculates how much pension you're supposed to be paid, and then they start providing under budgetary allocation so that they start paying you. And that is the reason why when people retire from civil service, they can even stay up to 10 years before they start earning their pension because the money is not there. And the government needs to do a budget to provide for the pension. So now, the public servant superannuation scheme is a DC scheme for the public servants. And in this case, all public servants, the Kenya police, the teachers, people working in the ministries, and even now including people who were devolved from national government to county government, and they were not contributing to either CPF or LAPFUND. So when government now registered a DC scheme, then all public servants are supposed to be contributing to that DC scheme. And the contribution rate basically is supposed to be 7.5% from the employer and 7.5% from employee and 15% from the employer. But because of the challenges of what we were talking about, a third rule on employees' payslip, then the government decided to create a transition period where they started employee at 2.5% actually for last year. I think this year they should be doing about 5%. And then next year now they will be able to achieve the 7.5% to give employees time and room to clean their payslips to enable them now to do a deduction of the maximum of 7.5%. The only challenge or the only disadvantage of public servant superannuation scheme, the deduction is on basic salary only. And actually that is the requirement of a pension. In all pensions, pension is a factor of a basic salary and not a gross salary. But in the case of LAPFUND and CPF, their pension is a factor of basic salary plus house allowance. How did this come about? It came about through a negotiated CBA by the 10 local authorities, workers' union. They went and negotiated with their employer and said, we are willing to increase our 7.5 to 12%. And they told the government to also increase their 15%. But because the government was unable to increase their 15%, then they said include the house allowance so that they do a contribution of 15% plus of the basic plus house allowance. So it is basically because of a CBA which was agreed upon and signed and implemented by the 10 local authorities. So at the devolution, when the new when the constitution came into play and the creation of county government, so the same was transitioned into the county government. So for any of you now who is possibly doing a pension contribution to LAPFUND, if you decide today to go to public servant superannuation scheme, you will realize your contribution will reduce because it will only be based on your basic salary and excluding the house allowance. I hope your question has been answered, Dr.
Yes, it has. It has. It was even a concern amongst the doctors employed under NMS. I think they were wondering how the transition period. Maybe also, I would ask you, can you share?
Are they contributing to public servant superannuation scheme?
Is that the? I think it was. It's
because if they were employed under county government and employed by county public service boards, they're actually supposed to be contributing to LAPFUND.
No, most of those affected were actually employed before devolution.
Oh, okay.
So is it possible that maybe they can shift from the public servant superannuation scheme to LAPFUND?
Yes, I think the law, the RBA Act, is very clear about what we call portability of pensions. If you sign up and say you want to make your contribution to LAPFUND, it should be allowed because it is all at the payroll, at the county government's payroll, who are going to do the changes. So if you fill in a form, you'll be able to change.
Okay, thank you. I'll read a few more direct questions I had. Some of them you've answered, but maybe we could just listen to them. So there's one who asked, as a contract employee, a 3 years contract, how do I join? How much do I save? Do I get all my contributions and interest after my 3-year contract elapses? I think some of them have answered.
Yeah, so what I will say for the contract employee, if your employer is providing you what we call a gratuity, then the employer is supposed to be sending to us your gratuity contribution every month so that you benefit from the tax reliefs and you also benefit from the interest income that money accrues. But if then is not, you are not entitled to any gratuity, you can do what we call additional voluntary contribution. That is your own contribution that you decide how much you want to save with us. And the benefits at the end of the day is the same. We'll be able to pay interest to it and you'll be able to, and actually for additional voluntary contribution, we don't tax because it is assumed that this is money after tax. It is money that you are earning after taxation has happened. We'll only tax the income that money has earned.
Thank you. There's also, before I read 2 more that I have, there's also a question in the chat.
Yeah.
One of our doctors is asking, does one lose the contributions they made in a different pension scheme when they decide to change to LAPFUND?
The answer is no, you don't lose because it is your money. And there is no way you can lose your own money. So what you do is, if you decide to move and leave your money, say in CPF, for example, then that money will remain in CPF. The day you will retire, you will make a claim at LAPFUND and make a claim at CPF. If you decide to transfer your money from CPF to LAPFUND, then you need to write to CPF asking them to transfer your total pensions to now LAPFUND, and they will be able to do that. So you don't lose any money.
Thank you. I think that
actually is something that I want to comment on that.
Okay,
when you look at when you look at the RBA Act, it is very clear that this money, 15 and 12%, when it reaches LAPFUND, it fests on member. It stops being employer's money. It becomes members' money. So even if employers summarily dismisses you, from employment, he cannot write to us and instruct us not to pay you. We will be able to pay you your money when you come and claim for it. So it doesn't belong to the employer, it belongs to the member.
Thank you. That is a bit calming for those who might be scared. So I'll read two more direct questions I have. Delay in employer remittance, whose responsibility is it to follow up? I think this comes from the point where there are those members who belong to other pension funds that at the point of getting their monthly salaries, they're able to see the pension has been deducted. But I think when they follow up with the pension fund, they usually told
the money has not been received.
Yes.
So it is a big challenge. We are really experiencing a lot of big challenge with county governments. And that is why RBA decided to change the law, the act in 2019, to create clauses where it is punishable by law if an employer does not remit money. So in terms of whose responsibility it is really our responsibility to demand the money from the employer. But sometimes we lack the mechanism to enforce the employer to remit that money. But every quarter, we issue demand notices to employers who've not paid their money. And the other thing that we do as a penalty, we charge 3% to the employer for non-remittance of money every month, so that it becomes a little bit punitive, but still they are not really doing it well. Now, RBA decided to involve KRA for enforcement and collection of such monies which have not been paid. So I think that is a process that is ongoing now. We submit our reports to RBA every quarter. When they see an employer who has become consistently not doing contributions, then they bring in KRA to enforce that contribution. So and sometimes, you see now when we issue statements to our members, they realize that there are caps within their statements. So jointly, especially the workers' union now, we've been using the workers' union to put some pressure on employer to make sure that the money is remitted. Currently, yes, there is a little bit of improvement, but we are not yet where we think we are comfortable to say employers are now remitting their money perfectly.
Thank you. I would just like to, Dr. Koyo, I note your concern. There's no need to enable a transcription now. I'll be sharing the whole conversation. It's recorded and sharing in the appropriate groups. Or further better, I think I'll also contact you.
Okay.
There's a question from Dr. Naomi.
Dr.
Yes.
Are we good to go?
Yes, we are good. But there's a concern here. Is it possible as an employee in superannuation scheme to increase your contributions to above 7.5%?
In superannuation to increase? Well, I don't know. We might need to find out this, but I think it is possible if you are able to, if your salary is able to sustain that. I think it is very much possible. But you need to check with the payroll. They will be in a better position to give an answer to that.
Thank you. Two last questions that I'll read directly. Does the employer top up the VC if they are done through checkoff? And another one, what is the difference between LAPFUND and LAPTRUST? Is it true that they're discussing a merger? And how soon?
Okay. For the VC, I want to believe it is voluntary contribution. If you are doing it through payroll, no, the employer cannot top up on that, because that is your own desire to make a savings for yourself. The difference between LAPFUND and LAPTRUST is very clear. LAPTRUST, by the way, is a DB scheme. And a DB scheme has been closed. It has only been closed to existing members. LAPTRUST does not recruit new members. So they converted themselves into what we are now calling CPF, which is the DC scheme. And the difference is very clear. CPF is a private entity created through the registrar, what we call the Companies Act, and LAPFUND is a state corporation created through an act of parliament.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There's also another concern, another question just a few minutes ago. During internship, we were deducted some money by NSSF, but it stopped after the internship. What happens to such monies at NSSF?
The monies at NSSF, when you will retire or you leave employment, I think for NSSF, you have to attain the minimum retirement age of 50 or 55, then you can go and access your money.
I think Dr.
When you attain that retirement age.
I think Dr. is concerned because the payment was only done for a year. So is it possible that they'll get...
Is he contributing to either LAPFUND or CPF?
Most likely, because what happened is after, I think that is a group of doctors who are around the transition from
period.
Yes. So they had contributed a year for a year through NSSF when they were undergoing the internship, but then after they were employed by the county, they changed their pension scheme to another either LAPFUND or I think LAPTRUST.
Oh, he's saying currently he's not contributing to any scheme. That I don't know. He needs to find out from payroll why they stopped his NSSF contribution. But I want to believe he also needs to check whether he's in any scheme. And if he's not in any scheme, then that NSSF needs to be contributed to NSSF. But if he's in any scheme, this is what I want to explain. If you are contributing to LAPFUND, the 12% to LAPFUND, out of that 12%, we pay for your NSSF. You will not see NSSF deduction in your payslip, but we make payments to NSSF from the 12% that you are contributing to us and from the 15% that the employer is contributing to us. So we pick 400 from your 12% and 400 from the 15% from the employer, and we pay to NSSF. For CPF, they don't do that. So if you are contributing to CPF, you will not have NSSF contribution on the other side.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
The doctor is still doing a follow-up with another question. I think he's a bit concerned, but what I'll do is I think I can also link him with you for any further clarification.
Exactly.
I'll also link Dr. Mohammed with you. She initially tried to call, she didn't manage to send in her question.
Yeah.
But at this juncture, I feel like we've come to the end of this very informative engagement.
Yes.
And unless we have any member with a burning concern, we should probably be closing in the next few minutes. To our members, the Nairobi doctors, we have recorded this conversation. We shall be sharing with you. Someone is asking about the contacts. We shall also share this. We shall also share these slides.
My contact.
Yes, okay.
I'll be sharing my contact in a moment.
Okay, in a moment, okay. Or better still, is it possible that maybe we get the updated slides with both of your contacts?
Yes, we will do that.
Yeah, I think that would be better with your emails and phone numbers.
We'll do that.
Yes, Dr. Kabutier, the slides will be shared definitely. So at this juncture, I would like to thank you, Eliud and Kubasu, for your time and for accepting to talk to us. We deeply appreciate. We hope that we shall engage more. It's been very informative even to me, and I thank us all.
Okay.
And, without any other business on hand, I would like to bring this meeting to a stop.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
That
you,
is my number. Okay. Thank you. Have a good evening. Good night.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.